Well, greetings everyone, my name is Rob and this is Rob's Workshop. Quite excited about my latest project. I've just received a kit from a company called Silvercrest Models here in the UK, and they have a Kingscale range of ready to run live steam locomotives in various gauges. I've already bought two of their products which have proven to be very good, and this is my latest one which comes as a pre-assembled kit, and this is for customers to build their own locomotive in a shorter space of time than actually starting from scratch. Just to make clear at the start here, I don't work for Silvercrest Models. They're not sponsoring me in any way. They haven't asked me to do any videos on the build, and the kit that I've got I paid for with my own good money. So we'll just move on to a bit more detail and show you some shots of the pre-assembled bits and pieces. So this is the locomotive I'll be building. It's, as you can see on the front cover, it's a GWR 15XX class. There were 10 built in this class at Swindon, and the designer at the time was F.W. Hawksworth. And you can see the Great Western influence by the copper cap chimney, the brass safety valve bonnet. Outside wall shirts valve gear wasn't a common feature in GWR locomotives. They favoured inside motion on most of their locomotive classes. Just on the side, I really like the quality of these brochures that Silvercrest produce. They really are first class. I think I've got all of them now, but I haven't bought all of the locomotives. I can't afford it. Anyway, moving on. Plenty of information in here. As the brochure says, the locomotive is available in two versions. You can pay a little bit extra and have one ready built for you if you don't fancy putting together the pre-assembled kit. You don't need any machine tools to put together the kit. Just simple tools will suffice. And looking at the contents of the 9 boxes that arrived in the crate, I think I can attest to that. Most stuff is ready made for you. You don't need to machine anything, solder anything, drill anything. So I'm quite sure you could, well, if you wanted to, you could chuck one together in, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, week tops, and it would run absolutely fine. I've got 2 other locomotives, not of this type obviously, and they ran absolutely fine straight out of the box. But being the person that I am, I like to tinker and modify and embellish my locomotives, which is exactly what I'm going to do with this kit. There's another shot, another page with some of the, oh dear, if I can get it in shot, some of the details. What have we got? It's got, I'll read it for you. It's coal fired, live steam of course. Outside wall shut valve gear as mentioned, 2 outside cylinders, stainless steel motion, silver soldered copper boiler, boiler fed by an axle pump, injector and hand pump. Hand pump is inside the left hand water tank, I think. Drain cocks operated from the cab. Great Western Railway style safety valve, and etched brass body, mechanical lubricator, that's up front underneath the smoke box, reverser in the cab of course, and length 35 inches in old money, width 10 inches, height 14 inches, and the weight 51 kilos, which I can believe having moved some of the bits around. Full 5-year warranty I read, yes, be about right. Oh well, I need to zoom out for this picture. This is a cracking picture, this. There we go. As I say, they make beautiful brochures. Finish, they come in two different finishes. An unlined black, as this photo shows, a lined black, which was, I think, only on the locos that were allocated to Paddington and Southall for moving past empty passenger stock around. And there was a fictitious livery, a Great Western Railway livery of green and so forth. As far as I know, none of them actually had that livery, but I was toying with the idea of ordering one because my other two locos are GWR, but then I thought, no, not really authentic. It looked nice, but no, I know it wasn't the real thing. What else? Yeah, the 6 were allocated to Paddington and Southall, and 4 went to South Wales. And the one I've ordered, is 1508, and that was allocated to a shed about a mile from where I was born, so hence the choice of number. There's plenty of cab details to view here. Back part of the roof removes so you can get access to the controls, and I'll show you in a minute the controls on the back of the boiler. Next page is some I'll show you that when I get to the instructions part. Right, this, if I can get the camera in the right place, this is the chassis or frames that I've just chucked together for the moment. I need to align things and check for straightness and so forth. That weighs a ton in itself. It looks like laser cut frames, separate horn blocks. I noticed that they've used fabricated guides for the axle boxes. Normally a model steam locomotive, as per the real thing, would have a cast piece riveted by 1 million rivets to the frames, and then the the opening machined out as a pair. The frames are clamped together and then they're machined out so that they match. But aside from that, it's very nice to look at. Right, I'll pause for a moment because I need to heft the boiler over, which weighs an absolute ton. Right, it's just about giving myself a hernia trying to move that. As you can see, the boiler's fully built and all the backhead fittings are already in place, so you don't have to worry about that. I'll go through some of the controls. Obviously the firebox door through which you shovel your coal. Regulator, this is the black item here. We have the turret with a whistle. I'm going to put a fine chain on there and somehow work an operating mechanism for it. And you have shut off for, I think this is, yes, this is for the injector. Yeah, the injector. This, I believe, is a connection for the steam brake that's fitted. It's quite a nice touch. Boiler gauge glass, blow down valve, feed check valve, and another one over there, and blow down drain on the bottom. Pressure gauge connection, obviously no valve involved, that has to be direct to the turret. And the pressure gauge, this is about scale size probably, but no doubt I'll change that for a slightly bigger one. Moving across, there you go, GWR style safety valve, and at the bottom we've got the ash pan and the grate above it. The grates, fire bars themselves have to be fed in through the fire hole door. Apparently, that's something I'm going to look at later on. But there you go, it's a beautiful looking construction, very heavy, a lot of copper. This would cost an arm and a leg to build if you had the heating equipment, because you know you need some serious heating for silver soldering this assembly. And the cost, God knows. This is you know, this is the beauty of having a pre-assembled kit, or the ready to run one. You know, they're not okay, they're expensive, but if you compare that to building your own, how many years would that take? The cost of the materials and the effort involved, you know, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Boiler makers in this country are few and far between that can be trusted with such a complex construction, and some of those have waiting lists going back years, so it's up to you, you know. Personally, I think they're good value for money. Something that's already built, or even better in kit form, you can tune it up as you go along. Okay, moving on, I'll just swing around a bit. I've got the wheel set, put that in shot. Beautifully made again, lovely clean castings, and the wheels are keyed to the shaft, and a very clever oiling mechanism for the bearings, which are needle roller bearings inside here. Sprung axle boxes, of course, and what else can I say, just beautiful. Paint finish is excellent as well. Here's this, whoops, decided to run away. Here's a cylinder assembly. There's a cylinder assembly. As you can see, it's mostly complete. Nothing much to do, just bolt it to the frames. And that's a considerable amount of work just in itself, you know, it's quite lovely. And some coupling rods lurking at the back. If I can get everything in shot, it would be nice. There we go. Correct knuckle joint for the aft section of coupling rod. Bushes, of course, for the bearing surfaces. So all in all, very, very nice. Of course, there's 1001 other bits and pieces in the boxes behind me, but that's for another day. Okay, we'll move on and put the frames together. Have a look at the frames and then put them together. I knew I'd forget something. The boiler's been hydraulically tested at the factory in China to 180 psi, which is double the normal operating pressure of 90. And also over here, Silvercrest have done their own hydraulic test, same boiler, and he had a nice certificate confirming that. I think that's it. Boiler material specification, which looks very, very good, and I think we're done this time. Before we get on to building the frames and so forth, just want to point you in the direction of these excellent assembly instructions. And this must have been a massive project in itself. A lot of written information and pictures, as I'll show you. The written assembly instructions for each of the kits, and they call them kits, each of the boxes in the crate. There's 9 of them altogether, and they've gone through each of the so-called kits in turn, what to look for, which bits to dig out, how to assemble the bits in the right order, and so on. After that, to help you even further, if I can find it, we have some drawings, which includes these 3D renditions from a CAD program showing you how each stage is completed all the way through. It's very nice. So you can see where everything goes before you start putting it together. There's the final one, final product there. On top of that, you've got a list of parts in each of the 9 boxes, and on top of that you've got photographs of all the parts so you can identify them. It's in the book. There you go. So identify everything before you start work and so on. And then later on we've got more pictures of the actual build. There we are. Build stage 1. And it goes on all the way through. So it's really an excellent help. You know, this isn't a project in itself really. I don't know how long it took to make this, but it's very, very helpful, even for me. And that's it. Now we'll get on to the frames. Well, Houston, we have a problem. I started putting everything together, then I spotted something that's going to have to be sorted. We'll have a problem with the fit of the axle boxes in their guides, and it's a problem with all 3 axles, unfortunately. I'll take the wheel set out and I'll show you what's happened. I don't know if you can make that out now. It doesn't show too good there, but the guides are not parallel, and I'll tell you why that is. When they make these guides, they're made out of 2 pieces of metal and then welded. I can spot the weld there. There's one, and then one in that corner there. Unfortunately, when you weld this sort of joint, if you only weld on one side, you'll get distortion, which tends to close the angle between the 2 pieces. It's a well-known welding fact. What you normally do is have a weld on the opposite side and weld both sides basically at the same time to try and keep everything straight. But in this case it's only welded on one side, so it's pulled it in, so it's not square. Anyway, not to worry, because I have a cunning plan for this. It involves the milling machine. I'll show you one that I prepared earlier on the other frame. Where are we? Okay. That's the bearing surface for the axle box, and this has been milled, so we've got a nice right angle bend there. I'll refit those later on, and I'll show you how I'm doing that as well. Shame really, but whatever, just get on with it. Right, that's the chassis loosely assembled. A few pointers. Be very careful with the stretchers. This one on my kit was a bit of a problem because the formed bends on both sides were not parallel. In other words, the corners weren't at right angles, so a bit of fettling there to get them at the correct shape. And what else? This one was basically alright because it's a 3-piece fabrication. Be careful with the, move it along a bit, careful with these, what are they, corner brackets, because they're another potential problem, because on mine again they weren't 90 degrees. All of this can twist and distort the chassis, which isn't good, of course. apart from that, I've got the machined horn block guides, whatever you want to call them. They're loosely in place. Nothing's tight on the chassis yet. I've got to put it on a flat surface and do everything up. Well, yes, this nicely bifurcated exhaust steam pipe has to go obviously between the frames, down there that way up. I noticed that there was no gasket supplied in the kit, unless there is one. I haven't found it. There are 9 boxes and there's an awful lot of bits still to go. So if I can't find a gasket, there's nothing on the parts list, so I'll just make some thin paper gaskets and that'll be fine. That's the last bit to go on. I haven't put the front and back steps on yet because they're going to be very vulnerable and I don't want them getting damaged at all. Right then, we'll get these all lined up with the respective axle sets and onwards and upwards. Right, all 6 axle boxes have got needle roller bearings fitted and they're lubricated by clever idea. There's a cross-drilled hole, you can see it there, and a machined groove to retain the oil, and the bearing of course runs over the top of it. Now there's a hole drilled axially through the shaft. There you go. And you just put your oil can against there and pump your oil in. It's quite a nifty design. This is the axle at the back end, the trailing axle, and notice there's no oil seals on it. The other 2 axles have got oil seals on both sides of the block, which is a bit strange because there's no sealant or anything on the back of this bearing retainer plate, so I might put some liquid gasket in or something like that to stop the crap getting in. But anyway, that's if you're wondering how to keep oil in there, just pump it in from the side through the end of the axle and Bob's your uncle. As you can see, I've got the frames and stretchers loosely assembled. I've put them all on some parallels on top of the table of my mill and a couple of chucks to hold everything down flat while I tighten up the bolts on the stretchers. Don't worry too much if you haven't got any of the aforementioned, but you can use a piece of plate glass, for example, off cut of worktop material. That would work alright, so long as it's flat. Don't mess around with spirit levels because that's not necessary. We're looking for a reference flat surface, not an absolute flat surface. Instead of if you haven't got spare lathe chucks lying around, you could use any old thing as long as it's heavy. Use house bricks if you wanted to, as long as they're wrapped up to protect the paint on the frames. Okay, so I'm going to go around methodically tightening the stretcher bolts and I'll get back to you. Okay, so I fitted one guide for the axle box and nipped that up, not super tight yet. I need to make sure that's perfectly at right angles to the top of the frame, which it is. Now I'll bring in my adjustable parallel, which has been set to the same thickness as the axle box, and use that to set the second. There we go, get that out of the way. Set the width between the 2 guides, and then I can nip up the second guide. Do a trial run with the axle for this position and make sure it's going to be okay, and then I can fully tighten the bolts on the guides. You need to make sure, of course, that they are square across this way as well, which they are, and do that for all 3 axle boxes. Drop the wheels in and see how it goes. I'll just put this is the driving axle, I'll just pop that in and show you. So the centre driving axle's in, and I've just got, this is a 3 thou feeler gauge, which is a nice fit between the axle box and the guides. I'll settle for that. And the same on this side, which is a lot better than what we started with. Okay, all 3 wheel sets in place and coupling rods on, which will be the acid test, because the centres between all 3 axles have to be just right, otherwise the coupling rods will bind when I put them on, but we'll sharp find out now. And there we go, no binding, nice smooth action, and I'm very happy with that. Yes, very happy. Right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm going to be doing the brake gear. Pleased with what I've done so far. Okay, it's slow progress and I had some machining to do to fix a problem, but you know, I'm in no great rush and we got there in the end. So thanks for watching, see you again, take care, bye.